Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice. It's a brand new week, the sun's shining bright. A chance to cast your net, step into the light. Life's full of challenges, it's a winding stream. But with Coach Rice, you'll find your dream.
Right. Once again, happy Monday and welcome to Casting the Net with Coach Rice, where wisdom, faith, transformation intersect. It's hosted by myself, Martha Rice, and also known as Coach Rice, your mental health life coach, speaker, mentor, and entrepreneur. This podcast is really designed to really help you as the audience to get inspired, encouraged, and have practical tools to live this life. We want you to, have a place where you can come for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding about your mental health, actually, and well-being. So I just want to introduce my guest. Her name is Molly Schenck, and she's an interesting coach, actually, and I can't wait to dive into what she does because she's a somatic movement coach. So Molly, tell us where you're from and how did you end up coaching in this area?
Yeah, totally. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the time and energy. I really appreciate it. I love talking about somatic movement, especially because I feel somatics has had its glow up moment over the past few years. People hear about somatics a lot, but not always somatic movement specifically. So we can talk about that. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been here for about 13 years now. And I'm originally from Maine, so one corner of the country in the US to the other corner. Even that movement, right, from one extreme to the other. I tend to be on the edges, on the fringes of where I live in the US, and it kind of spills over into my professional life as well.
Okay.
So with somatic movement and being a somatic movement coach, so using movement as a catalyst for really understanding transformation that we're going through. And my background is in dance. I was a theater major, so the arts are definitely a major part for me. And I was introduced to somatic movement as part of my MFA program back in 2013. And I had heard bits and pieces about somatic movement earlier on when I was getting my master's in education. I took a course on adventure therapy and learned a little bit about somatics and embodiment then. So it's kind of followed me for well over a decade at this point. But it really wasn't until a few years ago that I, put this into practice as I was working through my own health issues, physical and mental health. I believe it is all connected. And being able to see how the struggles I was having really existed in my body as well, right? If we are getting in our own way when we're trying to, have our own business or take on any project, if we're getting in our own way, that's going to also show up in our movement patterning somehow. And so some of the first times I really started to understand this was with anxiety. And I found that lifting weights was a way to really help ground me and work through that anxiety. So it was those little moments that I started to see the power of movement. And as a mover, I've always believed in the power of movement, but starting to see it really be part of my own healing journey is what made me, inspired me, kind of guided me into doing it as part of my profession.
Wow. So getting in your own way, I'm curious now. So getting in your own way is something people often deal with.
Yeah.
What movements are happening to let them know that that is actually showing up in their life?
Yeah. So when I say this, every body, as in physical body, is different.
Right.
So the way that it's going to show up is going to be different depending on how you are moving through life and the
Okay.
movement patterns that you typically hang out in. For like just generally speaking, when we think about being really efficient movers, right? Being able to really streamline our movement, it's similar to that, so that all the muscles that need to be firing are firing, if we think of it in more of like a fitness center kind of setting or a workout setting. One practice, and this comes from Deb Dana, is she talks about simply like if you're able to take a step forward and then step back to like your feet being next to each other, and just start with that little movement. And that's what I love about somatic movement. Like it's typically really small, simple, everyday things that can just open our world to like, oh, this is showing up even how I'm walking. How
Hmm.
you're stepping forward and how you're stepping back. Where are your eyes going? Where are you like twisting? How are you shifting your weight? How are you preparing for that action? Is there like a lot of effort going into just step forward? I feel like you have little light bulbs happening right now.
Yes.
So that's like what we would do in a session with someone. We talk about like what are the struggles going on right now, and like I hear movement in how people talk. Like there's movement in everyone's words. When
Hmm.
people come to me and they're feeling like they got to push through something, or they got to pull it together, they got to keep their head on straight. All of that is stuff that we can put into a physical practice together.
Wow. Yeah, the light bulbs was going on because I had to change the way I move
Hmm.
as I was growing in business because I couldn't take the same behavior in
Yeah.
my present to be successful. And I'm still growing in that area. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, like always had my movements in life were always my mindset first, because it starts in your mind, right? Was always like life is short. I like flexibility and I got to be free, right? And that's all fine and dandy, but in the wrong context.
Mhm.
In the business context, it's not like that, right? All of it's not freedom comes at a certain point, but also a lot of flexibility, like I had, it doesn't work, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and how, like, as our businesses evolve, the way we move in our business has to also evolve. And a
exactly.
lot, right? I think a lot about the rhythm. If we pull in from like Kestenberg rhythms, there are 10 different rhythms of life. And it's fun to look at those and start to see like what are the rhythms that are feeling really natural to me? What are the ones that I feel I have to do in order to survive as a business, as a solopreneur, or with a company, and or with a group if you work with a team or an ensemble. Like how does that also transition? And it needs to, most likely, hopefully. There is going to be some kind of evolution, but we can get so stuck in our ways of like, this is the
Yes.
movement pattern that made it possible for me to start this business. Well, it's not going to be the one that allows you to keep it going.
Right. And I had to learn that.
Yeah,
So, how do you help clients that where their movements are incongruent with where they're trying to go or what they're trying to do?
yeah, it's definitely an unpacking of where they're at and where they want to go, right? And that space between the transitions are what I find really fascinating. And we so often are very clear on point A and B, or I think about like the constellations, right? We just see the stars. Part of my role is being able to connect between the stars and see those spaces in between. And so when I'm working with clients, um, similar as I was saying, like I listen to what are the words that are coming up, because typically those are going to be some kind of core beliefs that are also embedded in their movement. And it can be like kind of on the flip side. I know we're talking a lot about movement, but there's also the absence of movement, or feeling stuck, or feeling like you plateaued or you hit a wall. All of that we can also start to engage with. So based on what that conversation looks like, that will determine the movement that we do together.
So, if you're stuck, you usually just sitting in isolation.
Possibly.
sometimes with lack of normal movement that you're actually doing, right?
Quite possibly, yes. So I love the nervous system. I can get really nerdy about it. And
Right. I love it
yeah,
too.
yes. So I think about the freeze response as, right, we think deer in the headlights. And on the outside, it looks like the deer isn't moving, it's in complete stillness. But on the inside, if it's a freeze response, it's kind of like hitting the gas and the brake at the same time. So, like, that engine is running, but we're not going anywhere. And so, if we've got that engine revving within us and it's just kind of this outer shell that is preventing that movement, we can start to work with whichever feels more accessible. Do we want to figure out how to like really tend to and like harness that revved engine, or
Mhm.
do we need to take some armor off?
Hmm. Wow. So who are your ideal clients?
Mm. So with ideal clients, I will say I'm very rarely someone's first stop. No one is ever like, ah, I have like a weird, like my shoulder hurts and I seem to be like really weighed down with stuff. I should go see a somatic movement person. Like, no.
Right. That yeah, it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely unique, I must say.
Yes, definitely. There aren't a lot of us. And so typically I find that people find me after they've gone through quite a journey already. They might have a team that they're working with, whether that is a spiritual team or a physical, like medical team, or a group of mindset coaches. There's normally we're in conversation with a lot of people.
Okay.
And they're typically somewhere on a journey, and there's a hunger in there, to embrace that change and to move forward, and an openness as well to trying something that can feel a little woo-woo. I will be very honest. Like, I do this, I wholeheartedly believe in it. I have practiced it, and there are still days where I'm like, this shouldn't work as well as it does. Like, but it does. And just the way that you can really kind of surrender to the journey, which is
It's
not going
funny
to be
because
everybody.
when I was in my master's program in marriage and family therapy,
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about was somatoform,
Mm.
the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So what'll happen is like, and I see it in my clients, like if I could tell when they feel weighted down,
Yes.
and I'll ask them like, physically, what are you feeling right now? And
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, my shoulders are, it's they pain, it's very tense. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, what do you feel like you carrying? And they say,
Mm-hmm.
bricks.
Yes.
And that's usually an indication that they'll go see the doctor sometimes because it's so severe.
Yeah.
They'll go get a massage and it still hasn't went away. They'll go get shots and it's like you're
Mm-hmm.
carrying the world on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's what your body is speaking to you about. It's
Exactly.
saying, I'm weighted down,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a boundary issue.
Mm.
And so I work with them on, the boundary, how to set proper boundaries. But it's really what's going on in your mind and make you want to work that hard
Yeah.
to do the things
Yeah.
you're doing right. And so so the somatoform symptoms can be even like headaches.
Yes.
Sometimes they're not organic, right? So you have to weed out if it's organic or not, if it's something physical that's happening to you. But your body is speaking to you and you have to go
That
see
is.
about it. So it's interesting, like that you do the type of work you do because you're right. People don't look for that particular n-
Yes.
sought out, you're not a sought out
Mm-hmm.
uh coach because you don't hear about that many coaches that's doing this type of work, right?
Correct, correct. Definitely, definitely. And sometimes I feel like I am kind of the missing piece of the puzzle that's able to connect all the dots. Like, okay, so when you talk with your business coach, it was this conversation, and then you saw the medical doctors, and like that was kind of the same conversation. Like how can we bring this together? And I think that's really when things just kind of sing for people, right? That just falls
Mhm.
together, when you can start to see that the conversations you're having with whoever you're seeking support from are actually, when you get under it, very similar conversations.
Right. Now, how do people find you if how do you get noticed or how do you get your clients since this is
Yeah.
like something that that's not well sought out?
Yeah. So honestly, word of mouth is huge. And it's a lot of referrals for me of other people who are like, in doing parallel kind of work. So physical therapists that are like, oh, okay, try head over to Molly. And I also have been more recently getting a lot of folks who are typically in caretaker roles, who
Oh,
are,
that's a big one.
yeah, like who's caring for the caretakers, which I love because we're already speaking the same language. We can have a quick conversation,
Yes.
really dive into the body. Um, and so, yeah, so I teach classes locally in somatic movement.
Nice.
That's one way that I start to really connect with people. And then I'm doing more classes online, more virtual options coming up as well. So that is how I
Okay.
connect with people. And I think since it's a little, new, not a lot of people have heard of it. It's also really helpful for people to try it in a group setting, kind of low risk versus like diving into that one-on-one where it is a commitment. And it can feel really
Right.
vulnerable. But yeah, like what's that warm up going to be?
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
So what do you have coming up for the future?
Yes. So starting in April, at the end of April, I have a 3-month group coaching uh, commitment, group coaching setup coming up. And so that will be specifically for people who are looking to really take this work into their personal practice, maybe a little bit into their professional practice as well. The aim is more on that personal side and really looking at how movement can be a form of meditation and mindfulness and that catalyst for transformation.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the
Wow.
we've got coming up.
So it sounds like you're gonna teach that type of work
Hmm.
to other people.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do embodied leadership training as well. I typically don't have those as public classes. Those are workshops that people bring me in for.
Oh,
But when we're
okay.
looking at people who are in a position of power, like how can we really be connected to our bodies still? I think it's kind of the next step from your mindful leadership to like, okay, well, let's take it into an embodied
Uh,
space.
Okay.
I've got
Yeah,
that.
because a lot of times leaders are so busy giving, giving, giving
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there's no where's the care for themselves, right?
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
The crowd to get the help themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's pretty neat. So what advice would you wanna what's the best advice you would like to give the audience?
Yeah. I'd say for, right, generally speaking, um, if you're interested in this work, I think simply just starting to notice your movement in all aspects. How do you move when you're grocery shopping? How do you move in your own kitchen? How do you move when you are getting ready for bed or starting your day? And really taking this idea of movement away from just something that happens in a gym. But how are you moving through your entire life? And just start to notice, like, right, judgment free, compassionate, curiosity, leading the way on that witnessing and observing your movement patterns. Because some things will, I think, just emerge for you.
Hmm. Yeah, because you never think about movement in those, like the grocery store. No, you
Yeah.
don't think about that.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking about how do I move in the grocery store
Right.
pretty fast.
Yes, right. Well, and I was having a conversation with someone about this earlier about like changing eating habits also means changing grocery shopping movement patterns, right? Like you got to go to different aisles or different sections. And so that can be, right, it's so easy to get in our habits.
That's true. You get in them habits of going into certain. Yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Because I
Yeah,
know what I want
exactly.
when I go in the grocery store, so I'm moving swiftly.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's interesting. No, I never pay. I'm gonna have to pay more attention to movements. That's interesting. I
Yeah.
love it. I love what I mean. Thank you so much for sharing what you do.
Yeah, thank
Very
you.
unique.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
very unique to the world. And so I'll definitely I just want to say to the audience, if you feel this was helpful, please reach out to Molly, and I'll have her links in the video. And also, just if you feel like this is something you want to share with someone you know, please subscribe and share. We would love to have you watch the show more often so you get tidbits of information. You'd be surprised what you learn out here. There's so many different things, so many different ways to get help. It's not one way, it's the way that fits you. So I just wanted you to know that we're here for you. And if you need help, just reach out. Thank you so much, Molly, for taking the time out to come on the show today. We really appreciate it. And we just want to let you know that we're here. So we're signing off.
It's your time to shine. Your journey to chart. Coach Rice wisdom will heal every heart. So join us now. Let's make life suffice. Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice.